My husband's sister never liked to share attention, least of all when it came to him. So when we announced our pregnancy at his birthday party, she didn't just sulk. She smiled. She planned. And that night turned into a disaster no one saw coming, one that ended with a medical emergency, a criminal investigation, and a marriage torn apart. But let me take a step back. I'm Lena. 30 now. Ethan and I have been married for just over 7 years. Our marriage is strong, not perfect, but rooted in deep trust, shared values, and a kind of quiet loyalty that we've fought to protect. But if there's one lingering shadow over our relationship, it's always been his sister, Sierra. To the outside world, Sierra is magnetic, witty, stylish, the kind of woman who commands a room. But what most don't see is the destruction she leaves behind when the spotlight isn't on her. She is, in many ways, a master of appearances. The fun aunt, the charming sibling, the thoughtful friend, until you threaten her sense of control. Then, the mask slips. I didn't see that side at first. When Ethan introduced us in our mid-20s, I genuinely liked her. I thought she was a little intense, sure, but passionate. Confident. The kind of energy that could light up a dull room. I tried. I really did. I'd ask for her advice even when I didn't need it, laughed at her jokes even when they were at my expense. I gave her space in my life and heart, hoping she'd see me as family. But over time, I began to notice something chilling beneath the warmth. Sierra didn't like to share Ethan's attention. At all. I later learned that this wasn't new. When Ethan was 18, Sierra had pressured him into dating one of her close friends, someone she approved of. He agreed, mostly to avoid conflict. But the relationship didn't last. Ethan told me later that he'd never felt in control of it, that the relationship had always been more about Sierra than about him. Years later, at 24, he found himself single again. And right on cue, Sierra swooped in with another recommendation. A woman from her yoga class this time, someone she claimed was mature, stable, and most importantly, someone I could see being part of our family. When Ethan politely declined, Sierra didn't take it well. She broke down in front of their parents, full-on sobbing, accusing Ethan of sabotaging his own future, of not appreciating her guidance. She claimed that after all she'd done for him, she deserved to have a say in who he married. He was stunned. So were his parents. But it was the first time he saw just how deeply her obsession with control ran. Years later, when he met me, she couldn't hide the disappointment. To Sierra, I wasn't chosen, I was a threat. Thankfully, not everyone was blind to Sierra's behavior. From the start, Ethan's parents, Donna and Greg, saw through the theatrics. They liked me. More than that, they welcomed me. Donna would call just to chat or invite me over for tea, and Greg, quiet but kind, once told Ethan, "She calms the room. Keep her." But Sierra? Sierra never accepted me. The moment it became clear that Ethan wasn't just dating me, but falling in love with me, she shifted. Subtly at first, always with a smile, always in a tone that could be mistaken for casual, but every word was calculated. It started with comments about Ethan's exes. At dinners, barbecues, even casual chats in the kitchen, she dropped their names into the conversation like forgotten spices. "You know, Marissa's working at that international law firm now. Can you believe it? She looks incredible these days. Oh, and Jen? She bought a condo downtown. On her own." She'd glance at me after each comment, watching for a reaction, then move on as if she had said nothing unusual. Sometimes she even suggested Ethan reach out, just to congratulate them. Thoughtful, right? But the message was always clear: you're not the best he could do. And I'll remind you until you believe it. Ethan wasn't oblivious. He told her, gently at first, to stop bringing them up. She brushed it off. The next time he pushed harder, she turned it on me. "Wow, Lena's really got you wrapped around her finger, huh? You've changed. You used to have better taste." Then came the line I'll never forget. You're not even her type, Ethan. I could set you up with someone better by the end of the week. It hit like a slap. Not just because of what she said, but because I had done nothing but tried to contact with her. I baked her favorite dessert when she visited. I complimented her outfits. I included her in everything, even things that didn't require her input. I wanted us to be family. But kindness, it seemed, only made her more vicious. One night, Ethan's parents invited us to dinner. We were having wine and appetizers when the doorbell rang. Sierra just happened to have bumped into one of Ethan's exes that day and thought it would be rude not to invite her along. That happened more than once. Each time she was called out, she cried. Claimed she was misunderstood. Said she was just trying to reconnect people. The manipulation was so exhausting, it almost seemed rehearsed. And while Sierra didn't follow me on social media, she watched everything. She was always the first to view my Instagram stories. And if any man left a comment or liked a picture, she'd screenshot it and send it to Ethan with some dramatic note like, "Just thought you should know your girlfriend is thirst-trapping again." At first, we laughed. We really did. Ethan would roll his eyes, pull me into a hug, and joke. At least she's consistent. But when we moved in together, she escalated. She told Ethan, to his face, that I was a walking red flag, that he was being reckless and needed to get his head straight. She said she couldn't support someone like me becoming part of the family. That was the first time I cried because of her. I remember sitting in our apartment later that night, knees pulled to my chest on the kitchen floor, wondering what I'd done to deserve her hatred. Still, I hoped. I thought, maybe, with time, she'll soften. Maybe she's scared of losing him. Maybe when we get engaged, she'll understand this is real. She didn't. When Ethan and I got engaged, the joy was immediate. Our friends and family erupted. There were hugs, happy tears, clinking glasses. Donna cried and whispered, "Welcome, officially." And Sierra? She froze. In the middle of Donna's toast, she stood up abruptly, grabbed her coat, and left. No congratulations. No smile. Just a bitter exit that chilled the whole room. Ethan called her later, concerned. She answered, already crying, but not with sadness. With rage. "How dare you blindside me like that," she shouted. "I'm your person, Ethan. Not her. I should have been the first to know." Then she messaged me. A long, venom-laced monologue that teetered between unhinged nostalgia and open threat. "You don't understand the bond we have. You never will. But if you plan to stay, you'd better learn to respect it." I didn't respond. I read it. Let the silence sting louder than any reply. After that, the performance began. Sierra wouldn't argue with me, no direct attacks. She knew better. But at bridal showers, she sat in the corner, arms folded, making little jabs whenever she could. Those bridesmaids' dresses? Bold choice. That venue's, fine, I guess. A little try hard. And then came the moment I'll never forget. Donna and I were finalizing centerpiece ideas. I was describing soft florals, flickering candles, muted tones, trying to create something personal, something romantic. Sierra cut in with a sneer. "That's so uninspired. Honestly, Ethan deserves more than tacky florals and budget ambience." Something inside me cracked. It wasn't rage. It wasn't hurt. It was clarity. Everything shifted that afternoon, in a way that felt both inevitable and sudden. Donna, my future mother-in-law, and I were seated at her sunny kitchen table, flipping through a stack of wedding magazines. The scent of her lavender tea drifted between us as we discussed centerpieces. I was drawn to something simple but warm, glass vases with floating candles, surrounded by blush and ivory blooms, touches of eucalyptus. Calm. Elegant. Donna smiled as I described it. Her approval mattered to me more than I cared to admit. For once, it felt like I was part of the family. But peace in this family never lasted long. Not with Sierra in the picture. She walked in like she owned the moment, leaning against the doorframe with a tilted smirk that instantly put my nerves on edge. Seriously, she scoffed. That's what you're going with? I glanced up, confused at first, thinking she was joking. But then came the rest. It's giving budget bride. Dollar store Pinterest. Ethan deserves someone with more class. Her words didn't just land, they pierced. And she knew it. Donna stiffened beside me. Her teacup hovered midair, and she said nothing. But her silence felt like a silent scream. She was just as shocked. Maybe even embarrassed. I stood up slowly, the chair legs scraping against the tile like the sound of a boundary snapping. You're no longer invited to the wedding. Sierra blinked. For once, her composure faltered. Are you serious right now? Dead serious. I've let things slide for years. The digs. The gossip. The way you bring up Ethan's exes like I'm some placeholder. I've been patient, polite, but I'm done. She opened her mouth, then shut it. And I'll never forget the flicker of confusion behind her eyes. It was like she truly hadn't expected me to stand up to her. Donna rose beside me. She didn't speak, but she didn't have to. Her silent support spoke volumes. That evening, Sierra called Ethan sobbing, claiming I'd ambushed her, humiliated her in front of his mother, and that he needed to talk sense into me. She even threw in the classic. She's turning you against your own sister. Ethan didn't waver. If anyone's trying to divide this family, Sierra, it's you. Lena's my fiancée, and she's not wrong. You do owe her an apology. The apology came, eventually. A dry, generic text that read more like a PR statement than an act of remorse. Sorry if anything I said upset you. Wasn't my intention. Hope the wedding's beautiful. I left it on read. Again. But Sierra didn't like being ignored. So she made her entrance anyway. She showed up to our wedding dressed like death itself, floor-length black gown, dramatic lace veil, blood-red lipstick. Not a trace of joy or celebration on her face. Just bitterness, draped in couture. People whispered. Someone even asked if she was confused about which event she was attending. And then, as if her presence wasn't theatrical enough, she started circulating through the crowd. I'm just so emotional, she said to my cousin. It's like I'm losing my brother. At the reception, Ethan had enough. He pulled her aside quietly and said what needed to be said. Sierra, you can wear whatever you want. But don't act like I've died. I haven't disappeared, I've chosen a life with Lena. That's not a loss. That's love. She tried to deflect. She's changing you. Cutting you off from your roots. But this time, Greg and Donna stepped in too. For once, they saw it. All of it. And they told her it was time to go. So Sierra left, predictably dramatic, with a tearless sob and a final glare in my direction. It should have ruined the day. But it didn't. That was the day I finally claimed my space, without guilt, without fear. Later, I told Ethan plainly. I don't want her in our life. Not in this house. Not near our future kids. Not in our peace. And when Noah was born, she tried to resurface. Texts. Calls. Guilt trips. I didn't flinch. She doesn't get to be around our child, I told Ethan. She gave up that right the day she treated our love like a threat. And for the first time in years, I meant it. For the first time, Ethan's parents didn't just nod sympathetically or try to smooth things over, they stood up for me. Firmly. Without hesitation. That moment shifted something. I wasn't just Ethan's wife anymore. I was family. And they finally saw what Sierra had been doing all along. Life moved forward. Nearly 2 years passed, and in that time, Ethan and I became consumed with raising Noah. He was our entire world, a bundle of curiosity, joy, and the kind of innocence you want to shelter forever. Then we got the news: Sierra had suffered a miscarriage with her partner Mason. Despite everything she'd done, I felt it. A sharp, honest ache in my chest. Because pain like that, it transcends history. Ethan and I talked long into the night. We agreed, maybe it was time to offer grace. Not for her. For Noah. We let her back in. At first, I questioned whether I had imagined the old version of her. She was warm with Noah, even affectionate. She brought him little toys, books with his name written inside the cover in curly silver marker. They'd sit on the rug for hours, building towers or reading stories. She'd laugh with him, really laugh, the way people do when they're not pretending. And for a while, I let myself believe. But Sierra never stays sweet for long. It started with little sighs. Comments slipped between lines like, "You're so lucky, Lena. Everything works out for you. Must be nice having parents-in-law that take your side." Then came the full monologues, about how hard her life was, how everyone betrayed her, how bosses conspired against her and friends abandoned her. There was always a villain. And never, ever, was it her. When she and Mason got engaged, I braced myself. Ethan and I genuinely hoped we'd turned a corner, that maybe we'd be part of the next chapter. Then the invitations went out. To everyone. Except us. Ethan stared at his phone for a long time. "Maybe she forgot," he said quietly. He still wanted to believe in the version of her that hugged Noah and brought coloring books. But I knew better. I called her. I kept my voice even. Controlled. "Sierra, we didn't receive an invite." Was that intentional? She didn't miss a beat. It was. Silence. "I just didn't want to risk you making a scene," she added. "What scene?" "You remember, I wore black to your wedding. What if you show up at mine in neon? Just trying to avoid drama." I stared at the wall, stunned. "Excuse me?" "You're sensitive, Lena. Always have been. I know how you operate. I'm just protecting my peace." I didn't say another word. I hung up. Then I turned to Ethan and, for the first time, there was no hesitation in my voice. "She hasn't changed. Not at all. And I'm done pretending she has." It wasn't a declaration made in anger, it was acceptance. And this time, it wasn't a boundary. It was a door closed, quietly and firmly, for good. Sierra didn't take the news well. When Ethan calmly told her that neither he nor his parents would be attending her wedding, and that, after everything, they wouldn't be paying for it either, she broke down. Crying. Blaming. Accusing. And of course, the target of her meltdown was me. She called me the reason her family was broken and insisted that I had manipulated everyone against her. Her fiancé, Mason, surprisingly stood his ground. He told her flat out that she had no right to blame me, not when she had openly admitted to excluding us out of spite. Still, Sierra tried one last card. She messaged me, attempting an apology. Said I should let it go, that our wedding was years ago, and that she was just trying to protect her peace. I don't know what got into me that day, maybe exhaustion, maybe misplaced grace, but I decided to accept it. I told myself that forgiveness didn't mean trust. It just meant closure. And so, when her wedding came, we went. For Mason's sake. For Ethan's parents. Even for Sierra, a little. We smiled, we danced, and to my shock, everything went off without drama. For a while. Not even 6 months later, Sierra showed up on our doorstep with tears in her eyes and a suitcase in her hand. Her marriage, she said, was falling apart. She and Mason had been trying to conceive without success, and Sierra, in typical fashion, blamed him entirely. We let her stay for a few nights. She'd wander the kitchen in a robe, venting to Ethan for hours about Mason, their arguments, her disappointments. But when I tried to speak with her, to suggest that maybe some of this wasn't just Mason's fault, she snapped. You don't get it. You have everything, a child, a husband who adores you. Of course you think life is fair. Her eyes would linger on our family photos. On Noah. On Ethan. And soon, she turned her attention not just inward, but back toward me. Every morning, I go to the gym before work. On days I'm running late, I take my change of clothes with me and get ready at the office. It's a routine I've had for years. But Sierra, always watching, began asking questions. Why do you shower there? Why not just skip the gym once in a while? Who even needs to work out before work? I shrugged her off, saying I liked feeling strong, and hated arriving at work sweaty. She'd nod. Smile. But I could feel something simmering under the surface. Then came the moment I'll never forget. One afternoon at lunch, Donna was telling us about a friend of hers who had gone through a nasty divorce. The woman's husband had cheated, and she walked away with half of everything. Sierra, unprompted, looked directly at Ethan and asked, "Did you guys sign a prenup?" The entire table went silent. Ethan set his fork down and stared at her. No. Lena and I both have stable careers. We trust each other. We never saw the need. Sierra snorted. You never know, though. People cheat. People hide things. You could wake up blindsided any day. I stared at her in disbelief. What exactly are you implying? She looked at me with mock innocence. I'm just saying, you're always rushing around with gym bags and changing clothes. If I didn't know you, I might wonder. Donna and Greg immediately stepped in, asking her to stop. But Sierra wasn't done. She looked at Ethan again, and with a smirk, said, "And honestly, have you ever wondered if Noah even looks like you?" The room froze. I have never, in my entire life, seen Ethan react like that. He stood up. Slowly. His hands trembling. His jaw clenched. And then, in the coldest, calmest voice, he said, "You're not a mother, Sierra. And after everything you've said and done, I hope you never become one. A child deserves better than this. Better than you." Sierra's mouth fell open. For once, she was speechless. Donna and Greg watched in stunned silence as Ethan stormed out of the room. Her face crumbled. Ethan didn't apologize. Not to her. Not that day. And I didn't want him to. He had taken years of emotional restraint and turned it into one clear truth. Sierra's damage wasn't just mine to carry anymore. Ethan didn't stop after the first blow. Still trembling from rage, he kept going, calm, focused, but relentless. "You're projecting, Sierra. Maybe instead of questioning my wife or insulting my son, you should take a hard look at your own marriage. Because right now, all I see is bitterness and desperation." Sierra's eyes welled up. Her lips started to quiver, and then the tears came, loud, dramatic, messy. She turned toward Mason, still seated beside her, clearly expecting comfort. A hand on the back. A whispered, "It's okay." But he didn't move. He just sat there, staring blankly, his hands folded in his lap. It broke something in her. She stood abruptly, knocking her chair over in the process, and stormed toward the bathroom, sobbing. Ethan collapsed into his seat, his fists clenched. I placed my hand gently on his, feeling the heat still radiating through his body. Donna arrived, calm and steady, placing a hand on her son's shoulder. "You did the right thing." I nodded silently. I had spent years quietly absorbing Sierra's cruelty, but seeing Ethan speak so publicly, so fiercely in our defense, it meant everything. He turned to Mason, finally. "I'm sorry you had to sit through that." But he didn't look at Sierra again. After that day, the silence between us and Sierra became official. We cut off all contact, not just for me, but for Ethan's well-being too. He'd had enough. We both had. And so had his parents. Donna and Greg pulled us aside after lunch. "She crossed a line," Greg said, his voice low. "You've always been the calm one," Donna added, looking at Ethan. "And if even you lost control, we can't ignore that anymore." That was the last real conversation we had about Sierra for almost a year. And for once, life was peaceful. Then, 2 months ago, something changed. I found out I was pregnant again. We hadn't been trying. It was completely unexpected, and absolutely joyous. Ethan and I cried in our kitchen, holding the test in our hands. A second child. A little sibling for Noah. A new chapter. We decided to tell everyone at Ethan's birthday party. Donna and Greg were hosting a big backyard dinner with friends and family, and it felt like the perfect time to share something happy, something just ours. But word travels fast. And Sierra, it seemed, had heard. She arrived uninvited. Ethan and I froze when we saw her walking up the path with a bottle of wine in one hand and a fake smile plastered across her face. "I heard there was a party," she said, pulling Ethan into a hug. "I missed you." He stood stiffly, then stepped back. "If you really mean that," he said, motioning toward me, "then you owe Lena an apology. You crossed a line, and you know it." Sierra turned to me. Her smile faltered slightly, then returned. "You're right," she said. "I am sorry. Truly. I've been going to therapy the last few months, and I've realized how unfair I've been. How hurtful. I just want to move forward." I didn't believe a word of it. But I nodded. I smiled. I said, "Thank you." Because this wasn't the time or place, not Ethan's birthday. Donna and Greg took us aside soon after, concern in their eyes. "We didn't know she was coming," Greg said. "Say the word and she's out." But Ethan shook his head. "No scene. Not tonight. Let's just get through it." To everyone else, Sierra was charming that evening. Laughing with cousins. Helping carry plates. Acting like nothing had ever happened. She even told a few people about her therapy journey, how she was working on healing old wounds. I wanted to believe her. I really did. But something about the way she smiled, too bright, too fast, unsettled me. And when she congratulated me later that night, too warmly, too enthusiastically, I felt it again. This wasn't healing. This was performance. Something about Sierra felt off that evening, even more than usual. She moved through the celebration like a stage actress on opening night. Her gestures were exaggerated, her laughter too sharp, her eyes scanning for reactions. She complimented people she usually ignored and chatted with distant relatives like she'd missed them deeply. No one seemed to question it, they were just relieved she was being pleasant. But I didn't buy it. I'd learned to read the space between her words. And this performance? It was far too polished for someone who had spent the last year ignoring our existence. Still, I tried to focus on the moment. It was Ethan's birthday, and he was glowing. When the time came for speeches, he stood up with his glass and looked directly at me. His voice caught slightly, then steadied. "There's not a day I wake up without thanking the universe that Lena chose me. She's my person. My calm. My favorite part of every morning and every night." I smiled so hard it hurt. My chest tightened with emotion. After all the chaos, all the battles, we were still us. Still strong. Still wildly in love. Then he reached for my hand and looked around the patio. "And tonight, we get to share even more happiness." His smile widened. "We're expecting another baby." For a beat, the world went still. Then, the cheers erupted like fireworks. Gasps, applause, clapping hands. My mother-in-law Donna burst into tears and hugged me with trembling arms. Greg, my father-in-law, wrapped Ethan in a proud embrace. There were whistles, jokes about names, guesses about gender. My mom's hands were shaking as she touched my stomach. Everyone was glowing. Everyone, except Sierra. I saw her, standing near the back edge of the garden, clutching a glass of wine. Her eyes locked on me, then drifted to my belly, then away. No smile. No words. Just a hard, frozen stare. Then she turned and walked toward the far side of the yard like a ghost slipping into shadows. I tried not to think about it. I was pulled into congratulations, hugs, more questions. People asked what names we were considering, what month the baby was due. I didn't notice Sierra slip back inside. Later, I tried to stand and help bring dishes out, but Ethan's Uncle Rick and my mom gently pressed me back into my chair. Absolutely not, Rick grinned. You're off duty now. So I sat, surrounded by warmth, with the smell of grilled vegetables and fresh rosemary in the air. That's when Sierra reappeared. She was holding a plate, colorful, steaming, arranged like something from a bistro. And she was smiling. Radiantly. I wanted to serve you myself, she said sweetly. This is my peace offering, okay? I've been working on myself, going to therapy, realizing how wrong I was. You didn't deserve any of it. She placed the plate in front of me, chicken, vegetables, salad, and shrimp. Bright pink, butter-glazed shrimp, nestled right next to the potatoes. My throat closed. I'm severely allergic to shellfish. I've said it in front of her. More than once. My EpiPen is a permanent fixture in my purse. This wasn't new information. I forced a smile. Thank you, I said softly, though my stomach twisted. She turned and walked off like a woman who had done her good deed for the night. I stared at the shrimp for a long moment. I was trying to believe it was just a mistake. That maybe she'd forgotten. But something in my gut screamed otherwise. I stood and began walking toward the kitchen to get a new plate. I didn't want a confrontation, not tonight. That's when Mason, Sierra's husband, appeared beside me. Hey, congratulations, by the way, he said warmly. You guys really know how to steal the spotlight, huh? He winked to show he was teasing. I laughed, tension easing a bit. He looked down at the plate in my hand. Not hungry? I explained about the shrimp, that I had an allergy and didn't want to risk it. He raised an eyebrow, then smiled. Mind if I take it? I love shrimp. Save you a trip? I hesitated, but nodded. He took the plate, thanked me, and walked off toward the food tables. I turned toward the house, thinking nothing of it. Less than 5 minutes later, I heard someone gag. Then a crash. I spun around. Mason was doubled over, one hand on the edge of the table, the other clutching his stomach. His face was pale. He took 2 shaky steps and then collapsed on the patio stone. Screams followed. People jumped up. Someone yelled to call 911. Greg rushed to his side. Ethan sprinted across the yard. Sierra was already there, her hands on Mason's shoulders, sobbing, trying to rouse him. What happened? What did he eat? I was frozen. Then I saw her pick up the plate, and her face changed. Her eyes widened. She turned to me, wild and panicked. Did you give this to him? It was mine, I said, my voice barely audible. And just like that, the world shifted. The air grew sharp. An ambulance came. They took Mason away on a stretcher, unconscious. Everyone stood silent, in shock, staring at the bloodless woman holding the plate. And deep inside me, a thought burrowed in like a nail through the chest. I was supposed to eat that. Me. And our baby. Even with the evidence right in front of us, Sierra's smile as she handed me the plate, it was still difficult to accept. How do you process the fact that someone in your own family may have tried to hurt you? Not metaphorically. Not emotionally. Physically. Intentionally. I watched Ethan stare at the paused frame for a long time. His face was unreadable, but his silence felt like thunder. Donna broke it first. Calm, clear, decisive. We need to take this straight to the police. Greg nodded, though the heartbreak on his face said it all. Their daughter. Their child. Caught on video walking into the kitchen, alone. Emerging minutes later with a single plate. And handing it to me, smiling. I couldn't stop shaking. And as I sat there, every bite of food I'd eaten that day suddenly felt suspicious. I hadn't been able to keep anything down since Mason collapsed. Because I knew now. That plate wasn't random. That plate was mine. By the next morning, the police had already launched a full investigation. Donna and Greg submitted the security footage along. Officers collected witness statements from the guests, and, as we suspected, expedited a chemical analysis. The preliminary results came back within hours. A toxic compound, used in household cleaners and highly corrosive if ingested, had been found in the shrimp marinade. Not cross-contamination. Not undercooked shellfish. Poison. The official term was intentional adulteration of food with harmful intent. And the party turned crime scene. That same day, Ethan and Greg went to the hospital. Mason hadn't been released. His recovery was slow. He was still on 4 fluids, still unable to hold down solid food. He looked thinner already, his face pale, eyes sunken. But he was awake. And coherent. When they walked into his room, he smiled weakly, but the concern was visible on his face. Ethan sat beside him and didn't waste time. He laid it all out. The video. The poisoned food. The fact that the dish had originally been meant for me. That Sierra had handed it to me directly. And that Mason had taken the plate only because I hadn't eaten. Mason listened quietly. He didn't interrupt. He just stared at the hospital ceiling with glassy eyes. And when Ethan was done, Mason said, "She almost killed your wife, and your child." He looked down at his own 4-line. "And she poisoned me by accident." Ethan's voice cracked slightly. "No matter what you decide, Mason, you're family. You always will be." There was a long pause. Then Mason exhaled, slow and sharp. "I want her to pay for what she did." Ethan nodded. And with that, the decision was made. Sierra was arrested the following day. She didn't run. Didn't deny it. When detectives showed her the evidence, she broke down crying. She admitted everything. That she had gone into the kitchen with the intention of serving me something that would make a statement. That she had been overwhelmed by jealousy and anger. That hearing about our pregnancy had tipped her over the edge. She claimed she only wanted to make me sick, not cause real harm. She insisted it was a cry for help. That she never meant for Mason to eat it. But no one was buying it. Especially not Mason. Then came the second bombshell. Sierra was pregnant. From behind bars, she made frantic calls to Donna and Greg, sobbing, begging for help. "Do it for the baby," she said. "For your granddaughter." Greg refused outright. "You made this choice. You crossed a line. We're not rescuing you this time." Even Donna, whose love had always made room for excuses, said only, "You need to be held accountable. For what you did to Lena. For what you did to Mason. For what you were willing to do to your niece or nephew." The charges came fast and heavy. Intentional food tampering. Reckless endangerment of life. Assault with intent to cause bodily harm. Poisoning. Mason not only pressed charges, he also filed for divorce. Sierra begged him to reconsider. Claimed pregnancy hormones. Said she didn't think clearly. But Mason didn't flinch. "You didn't just betray me," he told her. "You tried to destroy people I care about. I can't stay married to that. As for me, I'm now 8 months pregnant and taking everything day by day. The baby is strong. Noah is thrilled to become a big brother. Ethan is more present than ever. But at night, when it's quiet and the house is still, I sometimes catch myself trembling, remembering how close we came to disaster. I know now. There are people who wear masks for years. People who smile while setting traps. And sometimes, those people share your last name. Our son Noah still has no idea what really happened. He only knows that Aunt Sierra is away, and that Mason was sick after the party. Ethan and I have talked about it, and we've agreed we'll tell him the truth one day, when he's old enough to understand. He deserves to know why we keep our distance, and how even family can cross unforgivable lines. Meanwhile, the pregnancy is going well. I get ultrasounds every 2 weeks now, not because of medical issues, but for peace of mind. We've chosen not to find out the gender. After everything that's happened, it feels right to protect at least one joyful surprise. Emotionally, though, things are harder. I've developed a deep fear of eating anything I didn't prepare myself. I avoid restaurants, delivery, even snacks at family events. Ethan understands and doesn't question it. My doctor gently suggested therapy, and I've started going. My parents, especially my mom, have been quietly supportive, reminding me to put my well-being first. As for Sierra, she's in prison now. She confessed everything in court, that she had envied me for years, ever since Ethan and I started dating. She admitted she always imagined her brother marrying one of her friends, someone she could influence. When we announced the pregnancy at the party, the same day she had planned to reveal her own, something in her snapped. She admitted she never wanted Mason to get hurt. The plate had been meant for me. I didn't attend the trial. I didn't need to. Donna and Greg went, and later told us everything. They were heartbroken, but they didn't make excuses. They didn't try to protect her from the consequences. Mason is healing, emotionally, too. He filed for divorce shortly after pressing charges, and he's staying close to us. We still check on him often, and he insists I carry no blame for what happened. But I still feel it sometimes. Now, with my due date approaching, I'm focused on the baby and rebuilding some sense of normal. It's slow. But it's happening. Noah will grow up knowing love, honesty, and boundaries. Because the only way forward is through truth, even the painful kind. In court, Sierra tried to justify everything. She claimed it was her pregnancy hormones, that she had only wanted to send me to the hospital, not actually harm me or the baby. She said she never imagined Mason would be the one to eat the dish, and that I essentially poisoned her husband, so the punishment should be lighter. The judge didn't agree. She was found guilty, sentenced, and is now serving time. She'll be far from our lives for a long while. Mason is finally free. His divorce went through, and over the past few months, we've made sure he knows he's still family to us. We invite him to dinners, birthdays, he's become like a brother to me. I once broke down apologizing to him for giving him my plate that day. I told him how I'd replayed the moment over and over in my head. He just shook his head and said, kindly but firmly, "You didn't do anything wrong." It meant more than he knows. As for us, Ethan and I welcomed a baby girl. She came into our lives quietly, beautifully, like a sunrise after the longest storm. Her tiny cries filled our home with something we'd been missing, peace. Noah is smitten. He calls her his baby and insists on helping with everything, diapers, bottles, singing lullabies in his off-key voice. Watching them together has healed something in me I didn't know was still broken. And while the scars from what Sierra did are still there, they've faded with time, softened by love, by support, by new beginnings. My parents and in-laws have been incredible. Present, kind, protective. They've guided us through the darkest season and stood by our side through recovery and growth. We've learned a lot. About boundaries. About choosing peace over appearances. And most of all, that blood doesn't make someone family. Love does. This chapter is closing. But a better one has already begun. Thank you for being here. And if this story reminded you of something in your own life, know this. You are not alone. And healing is possible. Always.